Bueno, ya estamos por acá. Nos acompaña aquí Jenny Ashley, con quien vamos a tener la conversación. También se encuentra el maestro Marco Antonio León Manjarres, director general de Pacífico Universidad. Contamos con la asistencia de facilitadores, de colaboradores de nuestra universidad, también de estudiantes. Entonces, sin más preámbulo, damos inicio con esto. Como le comenté a Ashley, vamos a tener esta primera parte que va a ser en español. This first part of this event is in Spanish, pero la conversación ya con Ashley la voy a hacer en inglés para que quede como registrado, que ella tenga más fluidez en sus respuestas y nosotros después queremos hacer una labor de traducción ya con subtítulos para poder compartir el contenido de la charla de una manera como mucho más detallada. Entonces damos inicio el día de hoy con la inauguración de la exposición fotográfica Mujeres ocultas de Lampshade Project, que es una colaboración entre el Centro Cultural Tijuana y Pacífico Universidad. Mi nombre es Jhonnatan Curiel, yo soy el coordinador académico de los programas aquí en Pacífico Universidad y me da mucho gusto que contemos con la presencia de Jenny Ashley, quien es una artista estadounidense que ya ha exhibido antes, nos estaba compartiendo previo al inicio formal de esta conversación, como también ya tuvo la oportunidad de compartir sus fotografías en otros espacios universitarios, también en el Centro Cultural Tijuana, donde también está el contenido de una excelente entrevista que le hicieron sobre este proyecto de Hidden Woman, Mujeres Ocultas. Y bueno, el día de hoy, para también enmarcar esta charla, tenemos la importante presencia de la maestra Miriam García, quien es directora del Centro Cultural Tijuana, y también tenemos la asistencia del maestro Marco Antonio León Manjarres, quien es director general de Pacífico Universidad. Entonces, pido, si por favor la maestra Miriam García, directora general de SECUT, nos puede compartir un mensaje también de bienvenida para dar inicio con esta conversación.
Claro que sí, buenas tardes a todos, a todas. Nos da mucho gusto participar en esta tarde, en esta conversación con la artista Jenny Ashley. Saludo también con mucho respeto a las autoridades universitarias de Pacífico Universidad. Es muy importante para nosotros abrir este canal de comunicación con la comunidad universitaria en la ciudad de Tijuana y pues en la frontera, particularmente con temas y preocupaciones artísticas como esta, que tiene que ver justo con los discursos sobre la participación de las mujeres en el espacio público y la forma en que su historia es recordada, en que es registrada. Celebramos poder compartir con su comunidad universitaria el proyecto Mujeres Ocultas de Jenny Ashley y deseamos que sea de mucho interés y sobre todo motivo de reflexión de la comunidad académica que ustedes representan esta tarde.
Muchísimas gracias, maestra Miriam. Gracias por su mensaje inicial. Cedo la palabra ahora a nuestro director general, maestro Marco Antonio León Manjarres, para que comparta un mensaje en el marco de esta actividad.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias. De entrada, pues agradecer a Miriam su tiempo, también a todo el equipo de SECUT, a la maestra Lorena, al maestro Sinué, por compartir durante bastante tiempo arte aquí en Pacífico Universidad. Pues tengo un pequeño mensaje, lo voy a decir en inglés para que Ashley nos pueda entender un poco más. Y dice, ¿no? We would like to express our deepest gratitude to Jenny for journalists sharing her talent and her time and presenting her work through this Zoom conference. We greatly value her willingness to engage in our university community, to bring forward such a meaningful and thoughtful, provoking perspective, and to allow us to immerse ourselves in proud symbols of her art. Also, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to Miriam, to Sekut, and all the team, and for the support and collaboration, which made this cultural and academic exchange possible. And we're really happy to be presenting this in Zoom, and also it's our first time doing it in English, so it's kind of funny also. I was telling Jenny a little bit about our university. We are Pacífico Universidad. We are a university committed to the continuous growth of executive, professionals, and organizations. Since our foundation in 1997, we became the first institution in Baja California to address the education needs of working adults by creating a flexible and relevant programs that connect directly with the real challenges of today's industries. Also, here at Pacífico Universidad, we believe that education goes beyond the classroom. It is about building a culture that fosters collaboration, innovation, and integrity. For more than 27 years, our community has grown thanks to the trust of our alumni, our students, and the partners companies who recognize us not only by our academic excellence, but also our values that strengthen both personal and professional development. We're proud to cultivate a university culture where knowledge, ethics, and leadership come together to transform lives and organizations. Our doors will be open for you to experience this culture and art presented today by the artist, Jenny Ashley. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll enjoy the presentation.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias, maestra Miriam, también a nuestro maestro Marco Antonio León, director general de Pacífico Universidad, por esos mensajes iniciales. Yo voy a hacer una lectura de semblanza del artista. I'm going to read Jenny Ashley curriculum, and then we start with the interview that we prepared today. Jenny Ashley es artista visual e investigadora especializada en teoría feminista. Nació en Los Ángeles, Estados Unidos, en 1975. Cuenta con estudios de género y voces de resistencia. Estudió literatura inglesa y arte de estudio en la Universidad Estatal Politécnica de California, San Luis Obispo, donde actualmente reside e imparte clases de composición y retórica. Es un artista emergente cuya fotografía incorpora vestuario y mobiliario de décadas anteriores para crear escenarios que parten de la multitud de estereotipos identitarios emanados de la teoría feminista y denuncian la voz femenina del paisaje contemporáneo. Su trabajo incluye la autoría, dirección, maquillaje, peinado y guardarropa para crear piezas conceptuales. Desde 2017 cuenta con 2 exposiciones individuales y varias muestras colectivas. Thank you, Jenny Ashley, for being today with us. So we're gonna start this interview that is more like a conversation about your art and about your trajectory, artistic trajectory here in the United States, but particularly here in the border. So I'm very curious for you to share with us about origin and inspiration of Hidden Woman. So the first question, please, Jenny, is how did the idea of Hidden Woman and the Lampshade Project came about? That you can share with us. La pregunta en español es cómo nació la idea de Mujeres Ocultas y the Lampshade Project.
Yes, thank you. And thank you again for having me speak and for exhibiting my work. I'm excited to share it with all of you at the university. My background is in photography. I did black and white photography, film photography in high school and in college, but mostly black and white. And then I took off about 20 years where I was raising my kids and had a more domestic life. And then in my 40s, I started to just have all these creative visions in my head, and I really wanted to get back into photography because I had sort of neglected it for so long. I had been writing and doing creative writing for a long time, but not photography specifically. So yeah, and so I just had this image in my head of, well, I had a friend actually who was painting a series with women and lampshades on their head, and she shared it with me, and she said, you know, wouldn't this be cool to do as like a photography project? And initially she modeled for me, and we were going to do this together. And she was painting the images, but I was taking the photographs. And then it just sort of landed more on me to, you know, do most of it. So I just sort of took it over, and her initial vision for it was really sort of drab and like beige, and it wasn't very colorful at all. And so as soon as I saw like her initial paintings, I said, oh my gosh, I would love to do a series that's all different genres, you know, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, with lots of colors and vintage clothing, and you know, have all the women, and like show more of the room, and like create sets and, you know, design, and have it look more like a photography, like a still, like something from a film. And do you need to stop to translate?
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're gonna make a translation later with subtitles. So
Okay.
This conversation is being recorded. So
Okay.
we're gonna extract some passages and translate it for us to share it. But you can continue the
Okay.
conversation. And also, you are talking about how this idea of the project came about, but also can you share with us what personal or academic experience lead up to develop this series of photographs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so initially I just had this image in my head and I didn't know what it meant. And I just sort of became obsessed with finding these old vintage lampshades, finding old clothes, you know, pairing them, trying to create a scene that, you know, with bold colors and lots of matching, like the dress matching the wallpaper, and trying to create these, you know, domestic scenes that, you know, where the woman is sort of hidden and looks like she's just a piece of furniture or she's a decorative object. And when I started it, I literally, I did not know what the meaning of it was. um, and I just started posting images to Instagram, and I was just kind of getting back into the art world locally in my little town. And a friend of mine saw the images and asked me, you know, how many of these are you going to do? And I said, oh, I don't know, like 20, you know, lots of them. And he had a small, like, architectural office, where he was looking for art to be on the wall. And he said, well, do you want to do a small show and display all this work? So it was just sort of handed to me. I was like, oh, okay, great. You know, I'd never done that before. But then I went about, you know, printing them and making more, and then, you know, was able to have my first, you know, tiny little show, in this office. And then he said, well, you need to write an artist statement and tell us what they mean. And I went, oh no, what do they mean? um, but of course, I teach visual rhetoric, which is, you know, the art of persuasion. And I study, and teach in my classes at Cal Poly, the impact of a visual argument. So I was like, okay, of course these have to mean something. And so I really started to, you know, reflect on, why was I so obsessed with this image of the woman, you know, blending into the background and being quiet, useful, and sort of the seen and not heard. And I realized that it very much reflected the last 20 years of my life. I was in a very conservative church, where the women were supposed to be subservient. They were not supposed to have speaking roles. I was in a very controlling personal relationship in my marriage, where I was not encouraged to work outside the home. So my job at Cal Poly was just sort of like my ex-husband was sort of doing me a favor by letting me work. And it was a very unhealthy, toxic relationship. So I very much, you know, was going through and coming out of years, decades of being silenced, not being really allowed to create art, because it was discouraged in my marriage and in the church that I was in. And so these images to me felt very rebellious to be making them, because they were weird and a little confusing and, you know, somewhat subversive. And it was a sense of, I was having a sense of autonomy where I was making decisions about, you know what, I'm gonna buy some clothes at a thrift store. But I wasn't really allowed to do that in my marriage in terms of like spending money that wasn't, you know, in the budget, or wasn't like for food, or, you know, it was just decorative. Like I wasn't really allowed to do that. So it felt very rebellious for me to say, you know what, I want to make these images that are in my head. I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to buy some clothes. I'm going to, you know, meet new people. I also was very sheltered and not really allowed to talk to people that were outside of our conservative church group. So it felt very rebellious, and it was very sort of my coming out as a woman, as an artist, and just as a, you know, being authentic to my creative self that had really been repressed for a few decades. And then it just, once I got the ball rolling, I couldn't stop. And I was just obsessed about, you know, okay, I need to find, you know, I was just looking everywhere for how to do a project like this with little to no money. You know, all my friends volunteered to model for me. I found clothes at thrift stores. You know, I would take photos like in the lobby of a hotel without, you know, so I didn't have to rent a room or something, just something free, cheap, fast, like trying to make these images and honor, you know, sort of the creative instinct that was in my mind. So it felt very empowering for me to make these.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing this personal and academic experience that led up to this exhibition. Also, I would like to ask you about your artistic and theoretical influences. What role have artists like Cindy Sherman or Barbara Kruger played out in your work?
Yeah, so I did study photography in high school, and I was really struck by Cindy Sherman, her initial self-portraits, and sort of, you know, dressing up, and a lot of her 1960s, 1970s characters, and those were self-portraits, but just the idea of disguising yourself, which she does a lot of. So that made an impression on me. Um, I and then Barbara Kruger, you know, was sort of the first female artist that I saw doing visual rhetoric. I mean, she's doing graphic design, but in terms of thinking about art having a political message or having, you know, creating an argument, she was one of the first women that I was exposed to that was doing that. And, you know, art that could make you think, and it wasn't just pretty. it was meant to, you know, start a conversation. So I appreciate her work for that and the political aspect of it. And then I grew up watching Alfred Hitchcock. That was all those films were part of our family, just our family time. We would every weekend we would rent Alfred Hitchcock movies, and so the aesthetic of the 1960s aesthetic and that clothing and just sort of made an impression on me, and I really loved it. And then I also grew up, my parents owned an antique store. So we just grew up going to, garage sales, yard sales, thrift stores, and looking for treasures and looking for things that were cheap and interesting. So I think how I pieced together a lot of these vintage clothes and things was about the find and about the discovery of like, oh, this is weird. How could I turn this dress into an entire photograph, And also, I think without knowing it, I was obsessed with Wes Anderson movies when they first came out, and a lot of his aesthetic made an impression on me as well. Just the direct, straight on shots, the similar depth of field and the color palette, and having a lot of the matching, wallpaper and bold colors. And so I think he definitely made an imprint on me as well.
Okay, thank you. Because our students were very curious about the vintage elements and the staging of the photographs. So you share with us that has some reference to Alfred Hitchcock, also Wes Anderson, that you went to antiques stores to get this vintage elements. So you responded already one question that I had here, but also can you share with us what do these elements symbolize in relation to female stereotypes?
Yes, thank you. So metaphorically, the woman becomes trapped in these old-fashioned ideals, things that were praised in the 1950s in terms of suburban life, the suburban household, the ultimate, housewife who, was only supposed to have a beautiful home and also dress nice and wear heels. And so all that surface facade beauty where everything matched, and but the woman herself was trapped at home and unhappy. So even though we've moved past that as a society, and many women are working, there's still the old ideas of patriarchy still stick around, where they, so setting them with these vintage clothing and the vintage props, it's sort of, it just harkens back and calls back to that time when women had less rights, they had less voice, they had less say, they had less power.
Thank you for sharing also about this why the vintage clothing and what symbolizes. Also, a question that one student in particular asked for me is the relation with feminism. So this question is more related to feminism, objectification, and visibility. In your images, the woman's face is hidden. What message are you trying to share through that choice of the hidden woman's?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that these make the viewer uncomfortable, because her identity is hidden, and she's not able to show her true self. She's not able to show her authentic self. And she's just made into an object. She's made into a decoration. And so they're subversive in that way, where they're showing the way things should not be, rather than the way things should be, you know. So it's feminist in its subversive, like just, you know, showing it should make us uncomfortable, you know, or be laughable, you know, that like, oh, the woman is just, she's just the same as a lamp or a bedspread, or, you know, she's just a beautiful decoration. So the absurdity of that is then repeated over and over to show you how absurd that, you know, really should be, you know, for a woman to be seen and not heard is, you know, so outdated. And yet it still persists, you know, in any patriarchy, you know, Mexico as well as California.
Thank you, Jenny. This intervention helps me to point out this next question that is related to the other one. How do you understand the relationship between objectification, identity, and woman visibility in contemporary art? You were sharing with us these all cultural patterns that we share, even we are different countries with patriarchy, patriarcado and machismo in our cultures. But how do you relate this objectification, identity, and women's visibility, specifically in contemporary art?
I think some of the most interesting art being made by women right now is well, a lot of it is working with textiles and things that are traditionally considered feminine, or just women's work. And then, so now there's this resurgence of, which is really exciting, of, you know, women using embroidery and textiles and things like that within you know, in the feminist movement. So you see like women using sort of feminine materials to project a feminist message, which I think is exciting. And yeah, I'm not sure about like the objectification part. I think there's also just more of a, well, I guess culturally there's more of people are more aware of the male gaze. My students are, I have 3 teenagers, they're very aware of it, versus, you know, just a woman being herself and not, you know, objectifying herself or creating her own identity specifically to please men. And we see that, you know, just culturally in pop culture with like Billie Eilish, you know, wears big baggy clothes and, you know, things like that, to where she refuses to be objectified. And the older generations are like, ew, why does she make herself look ugly, you know, with dyeing her hair green or wearing these big baggy clothes. But that's exactly the point, right? Like she doesn't exist to please men. You know, she exists to voice her music and for it to be pleasing for everybody. So, yeah, so I think we're moving in the right direction in terms of understanding how objectification of women is harmful to everybody, you know, both men and women.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, again. And also, I was very curious to ask you about the impact and current relevance of your artwork. You were telling us that you expect that the people that see the photographs feel of or sense I'm comfortable of seeing these women like with the lampshade. So I would like very much for you to share with us, how do you connect this series with the Me Too or the Time's Up movements that are in the last couple of years? They're very visible, not only in the United States, but also in Mexico. How this, the Lampshade Project, the Hidden Woman Project, relates to these feminist and women movements around the world.
Thank you. Yes. So I think just being able to create, a personal expression of an image, something that points out, the objectification, or points out, inequalities, or double standards, things like that. Helps further the conversation. And so for me, this was very empowering, as I said before, just to be able to make something that authentically reflected, what I was creating in my mind. And then the actual physical act of doing these shoots and coordinating everything and putting everything together and making something was very empowering for me. And my friends that wanted to be involved, or that, a lot of older women too. I mean, a lot of my friends wanted to be involved because they saw themselves as the woman. They're like, that's me. That's how I feel when I'm in my relationship, or I'm at work, or whatever it is, they could relate. And so then they wanted to be a part of the project and to model for one of the photos. Or something like that. So in that sense, it's just a way to voice, to voice my opinion, or and I think with the feminist movement as a whole, these images are, they're not as like overtly political as you would expect. So, a lot of people they bristle at the word feminism, and it's like a bad word. And even some of the younger generations don't want to identify themselves as feminist because the word seems like it, is too angry or spiteful, or, something like that. So I think these images are soft enough to just create a curiosity and get people talking about them. But they're not so overtly political to turn people away. So it's sort of like balances a fine line, because I don't think you would really know that they're political unless you started talking about, like, what could this mean, or what's this about? So
Yes.
they're more palatable. They're easier to look at than something that, is like angry or like overtly political.
Yes, because the feeling I have is that you see the photograph and you take this first impression, but the time that you take more details about the photograph, so you begin to understand that it's something wrong with the photograph, because all is perfect, all is in very precise position. But the thing with the hidden moments is it's very surprising, very like, yes, I feel also uncomfortable that why all this is perfect, but also the person here has no face. So it's very curious to the people that see the exhibition. And personally, it was very great that we have this exhibition. And I share to you that the Señora Olga, that is the person who helped us here in the university with the cleaning of the spaces of the students and everything. She loved the exhibition, and it didn't have any text and it didn't have any setup of all, but she shared it with me. This is the best exhibition we had here at the university, and she did not have any political like comments about it. She enjoyed the pictures, but also intuit that something it was not it was wrong, that the faces of this woman were not showing. So for closing this conversation, Jenny, finally, what do you hope that the attendees will take away from this exhibition here at Pacífico Universidad?
Yeah, I mean, exactly sort of what you were saying. If it's a little bit of a slow realization, I think, that's really interesting. And if it creates conversation, it creates curiosity. And yes, it's very intentional that everything looks aesthetically perfect. And then, well, it's this facade that everything's perfect, but yet the woman is she's probably crying under there, right? I mean, she's like, oh great, this is it, like this is it, I'm just the trophy wife, or I'm just the hidden in the corner. So yeah, that irony is hopefully felt, by the viewers.
Okay, well, thank you for these answers, for this enriching conversation. Something you want to add for before closing? Is asking our students and the people that are joining us. I would like to hear some voices, about some impressions about the exhibition. But you want to add something else to this conversation?
Well, all I would like to add is just for students to be inspired to try to make what is in their mind, because I had to be very scrappy to do this project, and I had, nobody was funding it. And I literally just, all I had was a camera. And then I started going to thrift stores, and, so, and then I just sort of, kept going with it until it became something a little bit bigger than just one photograph, so just to follow your passion, and really invest in yourself in terms of what that vision is, because it can become something bigger and more impactful, especially when you're creating a series.
Well, thank you very much for all your answers. We're gonna pass now to some questions and answers, some Q&A from the people that are joining us here at the Zoom reunion. Abrimos un espacio para preguntas y respuestas. No sé si alguien tenga alguna intervención, alguna pregunta en particular con la artista, aprovechando que tenemos su presencia. Si la pueden escribir también en el chat, yo con mucho gusto la traduzco, y también pues para continuar la conversación. Agradezco mucho también que esté aquí el maestro Sinue Guevara, quien fue como una pieza clave para el montaje de esta exposición y traer esta exposición aquí a la universidad. Sinue, no sé si quieres comentar algo también al respecto. Tenemos aquí como la asistencia también de la directora, de nuestro director, tenemos estudiantes, tenemos facilitadores. No sé si quieres comentar o tienes posibilidad, Sinue. Bueno, a lo mejor está atendiendo otra cosita. ¿Alguien quiere agregar algo a la conversación? ¿Alguien quiere como comentarle algo aprovechando la asistencia del artista? Este es el momento. A ver.
Buenas tardes, yo quiero comentar algo Bueno, primero
Adelante,
dar las gracias. Me pareció muy interesante la reflexión en torno a la relación entre la obra y su indagación estética, sobre todo porque justo hoy estaba hablando con la directora de Humanidades de la UABC, acá en Tijuana, de la Facultad de Humanidades, y planteábamos la necesidad de promover en los estudiantes el interés por la reflexión filosófica. Y el tema de la estética me resulta particularmente interesante y atractivo cuando lo logras relacionar con la vida cotidiana, como sucede en tu obra. Tuve la oportunidad de verla en Secut y bueno, esto, ¿no? No sé, Jonathan, si lo repito en inglés o me ayudas.
No, claro que sí, aquí me apunté algo. Maestra Miriam Garcia was talking about the relationship between the artwork and aesthetic inquiry, promotioning philosophical reflection and the connection with everyday life as it occurs in your artwork, Jenny. So this is the comment that Miriam Garcia, director of Secut, shared with us. The relation like with our life as we see it in every day, but also the need to reflect more with a philosophical perspective about the things that we share and live every day, but they don't question us and critical before with these patterns and all the machism and all these dynamics that we share. Uh, we have a different question here. Let me translate it for you. Just give me a minute. A ver. How difficult was with working with models that are not professional in work that was very aesthetic? And was it difficult to capture the essence that you wish to transmit?
Well, I was very lucky. Everybody took direction really well, and we just tried to have a sense of playfulness about it. So they all knew that they were just volunteering, and yeah, they didn't have any experience. But I think all women can just relate to, trying to stand a certain way or be pretty or, yeah, so and yeah, so it sort of, it was easier. I think just having that sense of playfulness, because it was like nothing lost. If it didn't work, then, I didn't print it. And I just moved on or something like that. And I think people were just excited to play and be part of something, so.
Well, Ariel, something else that you want to add, the people that are joining us in this Zoom meeting? Sinue, adelante, Sinue. Sinue has his hand raised up. Adelante,
Hi.
Sinue, ya tiene.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Hi, Jenny. Nice to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, well, I just want to ask you. This exhibition has been in Tijuana and in the region for 5 years now, since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and I want to ask you, with all the changes that we have been going through in this U.S. and Mexico relations and the border, how do you feel as a scholar and as a professor to have this exhibition doing tours here in the Tijuana and the Baja California region? How do you feel about having this interaction through your photographs with the public and mostly with Mexican students?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're in a time when voices are being silenced in American universities, and human rights are being trampled upon by our president who's acting like a dictator, and it's just so much shame and harm. So I'm very grateful that we can, keep this relationship going. And I, adore Mexico, and yeah, and I hope to come down soon. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm very glad that the exhibition's there, and hope that it transcends cultures, and speaks to, all genders and all cultures.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jenny, for your time, for exhibiting these photos here with us, with our community of students, of professors, of public in general that come here to the university. So I wanted to thank you for everything that you shared today. It was very special that we have also not only students, but professors, our director, the SECUT director also. So it was a very special conversation, interview. We're gonna share it also in our Facebook and Instagram and all the social media that we have. I want to make some translations before we do it. So I'm gonna share with you first the result of this conversation before we share it to all the public. But just thank you for your time, your answers. I'm not sure, Marco, you want to add something before we conclude?
Yeah, thank you. So just like to thank you, I think I was like not expecting this, like the history behind the art. I think it's very important to hear the artists, their history. I was very inspired at how art can give a voice, and also like foster and do this reflection, and create like an empowerment, sorry, and resistance to it's like very, your explanation of why you did this is very powerful. So thank you for sharing. No?
Thank you. Well, thank you for exhibiting it and sharing it with your students. And I'm so happy that the exhibition is being seen by more people.
Okay, well, to conclude, on behalf of Pacífico Universidad, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for your generous participation in the opening of the Hidden Woman exhibition. Your work not only offers a critical and sensitive perspective of the role of women in society, but also inspires our university community to reflect and engage in dialogue about art, culture, and equity. Thank you for sharing your talent, your voice, and your vision with us. It has been an honor to host both your work and at our university. With appreciation and recognition, Pacífico University. So thank you for being with us, and we keep in touch, Jenny.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, every person that joined us in this conversation. Have a great afternoon.
Gobierno de México.